Today, I want to talk about a pretty magical strategy. So often we think about when we're trying to lose weight, like the typical diet is telling you what you can eat, what you can't eat. And this strategy is to just really tap in to your hunger cues. And if you think about it, there could be two magical questions. One, am I hungry? If you're hungry, eat. If you're not hungry, don't eat. And number two, have I had enough? Once I've started eating, have I had enough? Now, I understand that it can sound, kind of trite, well, it's not quite as easy as that. Yet, know that it is a possibility, right? Imagine if you ate 5% less, 10% less, 20% less, like how much of a difference could that make? And might it feel so much better not to feel deprived, not to feel like I can't eat my favorite things? Like, where's the diet part of it? Like, no, you get to eat pretty much anything, let's say. And if you really paid attention to your hunger cues, I mean, ask yourself that. Do you think it would make a difference? I mean, logically, if you ate less, it makes sense that you would lose weight. So in a way, it's kind of an interesting question. What if you just really didn't change anything, but you really tapped into your hunger cues? So I'm going to give you three strategies. Often we kind of know when we're hungry. That doesn't tend to be the trickiest bit. I mean, that might show up if you felt like in the evening snacking or during the day snacking, but it's a fairly easy question to ask yourself, am I hungry? And yeah, there's different strategies we could use to choose not to eat when you're not hungry. But let's just say it was as simple as if you told yourself, I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat. Now, what does tend to be a little trickier is to realize when we've had enough. And we're sort of just used to eating whatever's on our plate. Maybe we're afraid we don't want to waste it. Maybe we grew up being told, eat everything on your plate. Of course, there's starving children somewhere. Maybe it's just like one extra step. I'm going to have to figure out how to put it away and store it. So there's a whole bunch of reasons, or, there's just a whole bunch of reasons why we don't pay that much attention to when we've had enough. And of course, kids, babies, you notice that they do have that ability, but we lose that over time. So a couple of things that you might consider. First off, I'm going to say is to just commit to noticing. Like you don't have to stop, but just notice when you've had enough. And the reason I'm saying just notice is that there's some sort of little brain hack, because if I'm telling myself when I notice I have to stop, maybe I'm not going to notice. So you're going to start by just noticing. That's the first step. So really interesting when you realize that this is a thing and you start noticing, like as you're eating, there might be a moment when you sort of have a little sigh, or maybe you kind of lean back in your chair. Those are physical signs that you've likely physically had enough. So those are really fun. Look out and see if you can find those. And if you do, I would love for you to mention in the comments that, oh yeah, that happened. I noticed that. It's also probably, if you ask yourself, have I had enough? You probably have had enough. The second one is to really pay attention and savor every bite. And as you're doing that, we're not using any like methodical, put your fork down, chew a certain number of times, like legitimate. Most of us like really enjoy our food. And if we didn't, maybe just paying attention, maybe we wouldn't really be struggling with our weight. So on this front, just like almost like, when you go to a fancy restaurant and there's not a lot on your plate and you're really kind of eating it slow, and you're really savoring it. Imagine that. Imagine like when you take a bite, what is it? What's the texture? Like sometimes if you notice while it's in your mouth, does the flavor change? Is it different on the front of your tongue compared to the back of your tongue? Do you notice after you've had a few bites, does the flavor change over time? And just this act of really tuning into the taste, you're likely to find that, first of all, you're a lot more satisfied with what you are eating. You might also notice, like, gee, this isn't even that good. And it might be easy to stop eating something that doesn't taste all that great. And it's giving your brain a chance to sort of catch up. It takes like 20 minutes for our brain to realize that we've physically eaten enough food. And the last strategy I learned from one of my teachers, which is she calls it the halftime strategy. And the idea there is you eat half of what you've served yourself, and then you pause, maybe for at least a minute, just decide I'm going to pause and I'm really going to tune into, gee, have I physically had enough? And if you feel like, no, I think I still need some more, go ahead and eat half of what's left on your plate and then stop. And so you can kind of keep doing that as a method to sort of catch yourself in those moments when you have actually had enough. One other piece I just want to add to this hunger piece is as you're tapping into your hunger, am I hungry? Have I had enough? You might also start noticing, when am I hungry? Am I feeling like today's a hungrier day? Am I noticing I'm especially hungry at dinner? And then we can kind of problem solve there. Like, so let's say you find yourself getting really hungry at 4 o'clock and you don't normally get hungry between lunch and dinner. So I might look at, like, what did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? Was it satisfying enough? Was it just a bunch of junk that it wasn't giving your body nutrients? Your body wasn't really feeling like it had enough nutrition. You just really weren't, your previous meals weren't enough. And this is especially if you are a vegetarian, something to really look out for, because it's very common for us to um, eat, you know, things that don't have as much as protein as, I'm just having chicken and rice. It's a little, we just have to think about it a little bit more as a vegetarian. So just really notice, have I had enough protein? Could maybe the next time, should I add some avocado to my salad? Should I add a few nuts to my salad? Actually, did I even have some salad dressing? This is for everybody. Don't be afraid of fat. Fat is, it makes us feel more satisfied and satiated. So enjoy some olive oil, enjoy some salad dressing. And then the other thing that you might notice with the hunger, like maybe you didn't have a good night's sleep, and that tends to show up as some bit of hunger. It changes our cortisol levels. We might wind up feeling like I'm physically hungrier. And then on top of that, we sort of have the psychological piece like, oh, I got to get through the day. I better eat a little something to pep me up. So that's where it's so useful as a strategy. Who thinks about it that sleep is important to weight loss, but it actually is. And then the other piece, it could be like stress or some other emotion, overwhelm. Those also affect our hormones that affect our ability to lose weight. So I'll talk about those more in another time. But so your takeaway today is to start paying attention to hunger. And specifically try this idea about, am I hungry? If you are, eat. If you're not, don't. And then practice stopping when you've had enough. And the first step before you have to really commit to stopping is just to notice. And 3 ways of noticing: the side, sitting back in your chair, that's one. The second one, just really savor your food, check out all the flavors. And the third one is more of a specific to-do, is to go ahead and eat half of your plate and then reassess. So thank you for coming back, or maybe it's your first time. Please go ahead and subscribe, comment. I'll be looking. I'd love to include posts that are relevant to any questions that you have. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next time.